the last few episodes, we saw what a mess biology has got into through turning away from Bacon's scientific method and from its foundation. The creation was created by a creator. The best in the field dictum has resulted in the soundly disproved theory of evolution becoming immovably entrenched in secular science. But secular science has suffered in other ways from its anti-creator choices. In the very first episode, I said that in the 1960s, most of my science textbooks began with, "Science is that branch of the search for knowledge which follows the scientific method." But in the 1970s and 80s, the scientific establishment started waging war on the scientific method. But of course, without mentioning that the reason was it doesn't fit in with their secular humanist commitments. As Richard Lewontin pointed out much later, we have a prior commitment, a commitment to materialism. Moreover, that materialism is an absolute, for we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. So science books in the 70s and 80s started with statements like, "It is not easy to define what science is." And after a few paragraphs of pure waffle, they would usually conclude, "Science is what scientists do." Oh, really? Scientists watch television, go to the toilet, take walks in the park. Is that science? It became quite difficult to nail down exactly what the establishment actually wanted their science to be, until Thomas Kuhn opened up a crack and showed us how secular science actually works. A scientific theory is declared invalid only if an alternative candidate is available to take its place. This let the best in the field dictum out into the open. The things a scientist works on are just those which he believes can be both stated and solved with the existing scientific tradition. Anything outside what is currently accepted by the secular scientific establishment is non-science. And science often suppresses fundamental novelties because they are necessarily subversive of its basic commitments. And secular science is absolutely committed to materialism and not allowing a divine foot in the door. Since the scientific method is based on the creation being created by a creator, the scientific method had to be abandoned. Without the scientific method, there's no clear definition of what science is. It became commonplace for proud scientists claiming that science has solved almost all of life's questions and will soon have answers to the few that it hasn't solved yet. So science has become almost anything. But as Einstein said about real science, what can be measured is science. Mendeleev noted, science begins with measurement. Science is limited to things that can be measured. It's utterly unable to deal with many kinds of questions. Anything which involves the working of intelligence or free will is almost certainly outside the competence of science. Questions of morality, philosophy, art, drama, the appreciation of music, the whole realm of things spiritual, and many other fields are completely outside the reach of science. Secular scientists hate to be constrained by the rules of real science. We got a glimpse of this in part 12, where George Wald said, "That leaves us with the only possible conclusion that life arose as a supernatural creative act of God. I will not accept that philosophically, because I do not want to believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible. And that reminds me of Psalm 2. Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. And as long as the secular scientific establishment maintains its hatred for God and its commitment to trump the scientific method with the best in the field dictum, they will ensure that not only evolution, but other false theories remain untouchable, because they're essential to the atheist worldview. One of the other ideas essential to atheism is that the creation is millions of years old. We've all been told since we were tiny tots about all those millions of years. But where did they come from? And how trustworthy are they? About 6 years ago, I was at a geotechnical workshop. At the workshop's gala dinner, I was very pleased to find myself sitting next to a geologist from a university where I used to lecture. I told him I was eager to know what geologists thought about the Tyrannosaurus rex remains that Mary Schweitzer had been finding. T-Rex remains containing blood vessels, still flexible, and still containing blood cells. Actually, since Mary Schweitzer published her findings, quite a few paleontologists have also found the same things, and in several different kinds of dinosaur. Scientists have been dealing with blood and blood vessels for long enough to know that they can't last very long. Dinosaurs were supposed to have died out more than 60 million years ago, so I eagerly waited for his response. After a long pause, he said, "Well, it obviously means that the timescale is much shorter than we thought." So I asked, "Do you tell the students that?" After an embarrassed silence, he began ducking and diving, but eventually he admitted, "No, they do not tell the students. Millions of years are protected by the best in the field dictum, and nobody who wants to remain in good standing with the scientific establishment dares to point out that millions of years are, like evolution, a fairy tale for grown-ups. But where did those millions of years come from in the first place? Well, let's look at that next time. Thank you for joining me for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and press the bell so that you'll be notified as I release new movies. If you'd like to support this project, you're welcome to do so through Patreon. Find a link on my channel banner and in the description below.